Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast where we dive deep into life's most important lessons. I'm Sama, your host, and today I'm incredibly excited because we have someone very special joining us. Mr. Emerson has seen it all. He's worked with leaders, traveled the world, and mentored countless people through life's ups and downs. Today, we are going to tap into his wisdom to help answer the tough questions we face as young people. Whether it's navigating friendships, dealing with pressure, or figuring out who we want to become, today's conversation is all about wisdom that can change our lives.
Thanks for having me, Samar. I've been looking forward to our chat. It's always exciting when young minds like yours want to dig deeper into life's biggest questions.
Absolutely. There's so much to figure out, and sometimes it feels like the more you learn, the more confused you get. So, I want to ask you about the things that can make a real difference, the lessons that can change someone's life for the better. I think a lot of people my age feel like there's just so much pressure from school, from friends, even from ourselves. And sometimes it's hard to keep going when things get tough. How do you stay strong when life gets overwhelming?
That's a great question, Samar. I'd say the first thing to remember is that pressure is a part of life, no matter how old you are or what stage you're in. The key isn't in trying to avoid pressure. It's about learning how to respond to it. Life has a way of testing us, but those tests can be opportunities for growth if you have the right mindset.
So, it's about how you handle it, not just avoiding it.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Imagine a piece of coal. Under enough pressure, that coal has the potential to become a diamond. People are like that too. The challenges you face, especially as a teenager, can feel overwhelming because you're still learning who you are. But those challenges are also shaping you. They're building your resilience, your ability to adapt, and your strength. You have to trust that the pressure is refining you, not breaking you.
But how do you find that strength when you're in the middle of it? When everything feels like it's falling apart?
That's the tricky part, isn't it? In those moments, it's crucial to lean into what I call internal pillars, the things that hold you up even when everything outside is shaky. One of those pillars is perspective. When you're going through a hard time, it's easy to believe that moment defines everything. But if you can step back and remind yourself that it's just one chapter in a much bigger book, you'll start to realize that every challenge is temporary.
So, it's about seeing the bigger picture.
Absolutely. But there's more to it than just perspective. You also need to tap into your values. When things get tough, ask yourself, what do I stand for? What do I want to be known for? These values act like a compass. No matter how hard life gets, your values can guide you. Maybe it's courage, honesty, kindness, or perseverance. Knowing what you stand for gives you a foundation that can't be shaken by external events.
That makes sense. I guess part of the challenge is figuring out what those values are in the first place. There's so much pressure to figure out who you are. And at my age, it feels like everyone's telling you who you should be. How do you find out who you really are?
Finding yourself is a lifelong journey, but you don't have to figure it all out at once. The mistake a lot of people make is thinking that their identity is something they need to uncover all at once, like a treasure buried somewhere. The truth is you build it over time.
So, it's not something you find, it's something you create.
That's right. You create it through your experiences, your choices, and the people you surround yourself with. Early on, one of the most powerful things you can do is pay attention to what lights you up inside. What are the things that make you feel alive? What subjects in school do you enjoy? What activities give you a sense of purpose? Those are clues to what you value and who you want to become.
But what if I don't know yet? What if I'm not passionate about anything?
That's completely okay. A lot of young people feel that way. Passion isn't always this lightning bolt that hits you out of nowhere. Sometimes it's a slow burn. You discover what you care about through exploration and trying new things. Be patient with yourself. It's okay not to have it all figured out. What's more important is staying curious and open. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and you'll start to see patterns in what excites you and what aligns with your values.
It's interesting that you mentioned staying curious. Because I've noticed that some of the most successful people always seem like they're learning, even when they've already achieved so much. Is that something you've seen?
Absolutely. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is thinking that learning stops when you leave school. In reality, the most fulfilled people are lifelong learners. They don't see knowledge as something that has a finish line. They're constantly evolving, adapting, and growing. That's one of the keys to finding purpose, realizing that your purpose might change over time, and that's okay.
One thing I've noticed is how much relationships shape who we are. Whether it's friends or family, the people around us have a big influence. How do you manage those relationships? Especially when you feel like some people might be pulling you in the wrong direction.
That's such an important topic, Samar. As you go through life, the people you choose to surround yourself with will have a massive impact on your journey. They can either lift you up or hold you back. One of the hardest lessons to learn, especially when you're young, is that not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever.
That's tough though. You don't want to hurt people or lose friends.
It is tough, and it doesn't mean you should cut people out of your life at the first sign of trouble. But you do need to be mindful of how certain relationships make you feel and how they affect your growth. If someone is constantly negative, or if they don't support the person you're trying to become, it's worth asking yourself whether that relationship is serving you. You can still care about someone without letting them dictate your path.
How do you deal with that though? How do you let go of people without feeling guilty?
Letting go doesn't always mean ending a relationship harshly. It's more about setting boundaries. You can distance yourself from someone without burning bridges. And sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do for both yourself and the other person is to allow space. That space can help you both grow. Remember, not all relationships are meant to last a lifetime, but every relationship can teach you something.
It's hard when you feel like you're disappointing someone.
I hear you, but I want you to remember this. It's not your job to please everyone. Your primary responsibility is to yourself, to live in a way that's true to who you are and who you want to become. Sometimes that means people will be disappointed, but in the long run, the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries and understand your need to grow.
Another thing I've been thinking about is failure. I feel like so many of us are afraid to fail, but I've heard people say that failure is important. Can you talk about that?
Failure is absolutely essential, Samar, and I'm not saying that lightly. The fear of failure can be paralyzing, but if you reframe how you see it, failure can actually become one of your greatest teachers. The truth is, you learn more from failure than you do from success.
But why is that? Why does failure teach us more?
Because when you fail, you're forced to reflect. You have to ask yourself, what went wrong? What could I have done differently? That process of self-reflection is where growth happens. Success doesn't usually force you to think deeply, but failure pushes you to look in the mirror, to confront your weaknesses, and to find ways to improve. It's in those moments of failure that you build resilience, adaptability, and problem-solving skills.
That makes sense, but failing still feels really bad. How do you stop it from affecting your confidence?
You have to separate your worth from your results. One failure doesn't define you. It doesn't mean you're incapable or unworthy. When you tie your self-worth to the outcome of your actions, you give failure more power than it deserves. Instead, try to see failure as part of the process. Some of the most successful people in the world have failed, often more than they've succeeded. The difference is, they didn't let failure stop them. They saw it as feedback.
Feedback. I like that. So instead of feeling crushed by it, you treat it as a learning opportunity.
Exactly. It's like in sports. If you miss a shot, you don't quit the game. You analyze what went wrong. Was your aim off? Was your timing wrong? And then you adjust. Life is the same way. Failure is just feedback, showing you what didn't work so you can try something different next time. And the more comfortable you get with failure, the more fearless you become in pursuing what you want.
That's a powerful shift. I think a lot of people, especially young people, are afraid to even try because they're so worried about what might go wrong.
That's the thing, Samar. When you live in fear of failure, you're not really living at all. You end up stuck in a place of inaction, too scared to take risks. But life rewards those who are willing to step out of their comfort zone and face the possibility of failure. The question isn't, what if I fail? It should be, what if I never try?
That's inspiring. So, how do you set goals without being paralyzed by the fear of not reaching them?
When it comes to setting goals, the key is to focus on progress, not perfection. One of the reasons people struggle with goals is because they expect themselves to get it right the first time, and when they don't, they feel like they've failed. But reaching a goal is a journey, and sometimes that journey is full of twists and turns. You might stumble along the way, but that's all part of the process.
So, it's more about making small steps rather than giant leaps.
Exactly. I like to think of goals as a staircase. Each step is a small action that moves you closer to the top. If you focus on the next step instead of the entire staircase, it feels much more manageable. And along the way, you'll build momentum. Small wins add up. The problem is a lot of people look at the top of the staircase and get overwhelmed. They don't realize that all it takes is one step at a time.
I've definitely felt that. Sometimes the big goals seem impossible.
And that's why breaking them down is so important. Focus on what you can do today. What's the next small action you can take? Maybe it's reading a book, practicing a skill, or reaching out to someone for advice. The point is to keep moving forward, even if it's in small increments. Over time, those small actions compound, and before you know it, you've made significant progress.
That's good advice. I think a lot of us set goals and then lose motivation. How do you stay consistent?
Consistency is key, and the way to stay consistent is to connect your goals to something meaningful. If you're doing something just because someone else told you to, or because you think it's what you should do, it's going to be hard to stay motivated. But if your goal is tied to something that really matters to you, something that aligns with your values or your vision for your future, that inner drive will help you push through the tough days.
So, it's about finding that why behind the goal.
Exactly. Your why is the fuel that keeps you going. On days when you don't feel like putting in the work, you remind yourself why you started. Maybe it's because you want to make a difference, or because you want to create a better future for yourself and your family. Whatever it is, that why is what will carry you through when motivation fades.
I want to shift gears a bit and talk about social media. It's such a big part of life for people my age. But sometimes it feels like there's so much pressure to present a perfect image. How do you handle that?
That's a great question, Samar, and it's something a lot of young people struggle with today. Social media can be a powerful tool, but it can also be a source of comparison, insecurity, and stress. The key is to remember that what you see on social media is often a curated highlight reel, not reality. People post their best moments, their vacations, their accomplishments, but you rarely see their struggles or failures.
Yeah, it's hard not to compare yourself when it looks like everyone else has it all figured out.
Exactly. But comparison is a trap. When you start measuring your worth against someone else's carefully edited life, you lose sight of your own unique journey. The only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Focus on your own growth, your own progress. Social media is a tool. It can connect you, inspire you, but don't let it define your self-worth.
That's easier said than done though. Do you think we are too focused on getting validation from likes and followers?
Yes, and it's important to recognize that external validation is fleeting. The number of likes or followers you have doesn't determine your value. Real validation comes from within, from knowing that you're living in alignment with your values, that you're growing, that you're making an impact in the ways that matter to you. Chasing external approval can become a never-ending cycle, but internal validation gives you a sense of peace and purpose.
So, how do we stop caring so much about what other people think?
It's a process, but it starts with getting clear on who you are and what you stand for. When you're grounded in your values, other people's opinions have less power over you. It's not about becoming immune to criticism. We're all human, and it's natural to want approval. But the more you build confidence in who you are, the less you need that validation from others. Start by asking yourself, what do I value? What I want to accomplish? When you're focused on your own path, The noise from the outside world starts to quiet down.
That's really helpful. I feel like confidence is something a lot of people struggle with too. How do you build real confidence?
Confidence comes from two main things: preparation and self-belief. The more you prepare, the more capable you feel. Whether it's a test, a performance, or a challenge, confidence comes from knowing you've put in the work. But preparation alone isn't enough. You also need to believe in your ability to handle whatever comes your way.
But what if you've never done something before? How do you believe in yourself when it's all new?
Great question. Confidence doesn't mean you have to be perfect or know everything. It means trusting that you'll figure it out, even if you don't have all the answers right away. It's the belief that no matter what happens, you have the resilience and resourcefulness to keep going. That's why stepping out of your comfort zone is so important. Every time you try something new, you prove to yourself that you can handle uncertainty. Over time, that builds true confidence.
So it's more about trusting the process, not necessarily being great at everything from the start.
Exactly. Confidence isn't about being the best at something right away. It's about knowing that you can grow, that you can learn, and that you'll improve with time. And here's a secret. Even the most confident people still have doubts. The difference is they don't let those doubts stop them from taking action.
Wow, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. Before we wrap up, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to someone my age who's trying to figure out their place in the world?
If I could give just one piece of advice, it would be this: trust the process of becoming. Life isn't about having all the answers right away. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, one step at a time. Along the way, you'll face challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but each of those moments is an opportunity to grow. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, to fail, or to take risks. Those are the experiences that shape you.
So it's okay if we don't have it all figured out right now.
More than okay. In fact, I'd say it's better that way. Life isn't a race to some imaginary finish line where you have everything figured out. It's about the journey, learning, evolving, and constantly rediscovering who you are. The key is to stay open, curious, and committed to your own growth. And remember, the person you are today isn't the person you'll be in 5, 10, or 20 years. So give yourself the grace to grow at your own pace.
That takes a lot of pressure off. It's like knowing that it's okay to be a work in progress.
That's exactly it. We're all works in progress, no matter our age or experience. And the moment you embrace that idea, you free yourself from the unrealistic expectation of perfection. Instead, you start focusing on what really matters, becoming a little better, a little wiser, and a little more authentic with each passing day.
Mr. Emerson, thank you so much for sharing all of this wisdom. I feel like I've got a new way to think about challenges, relationships, and my future. I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way.
It's been a pleasure, Samar. Remember, no matter where life takes you, you always have the power to choose how you respond to it. Stay true to yourself, and don't be afraid to chase your dreams, even when the path isn't clear.
That's some powerful advice. I hope everyone listening takes it to heart. I know I will. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share your thoughts on the conversation. And of course, we'll be back soon with more insights to help you navigate life's twists and turns. Until then, take care and keep growing.